So let's talk about this decade's version of The Mummy, which we keep getting. And the Mummy franchise is not one that I've ever really loved. Out of all the monsters, Universal monster movies, that's not my favorite one. But I did really like the Boris Karloff one from 1932. But I've only seen that. I've only seen The Mummy and The Mummy Returns and The Scorpion King. Technically, to be fair, that's a spin-off. But I've only seen those movies for The Mummy. I haven't seen them all, but from what I've seen, there's only one I liked, and the other ones are very, very, for me, lackluster. The Mummy and The Mummy Returns are very lackluster movies that I never got a love for, like a lot of people did. But I didn't grow up with those. But then we get this reboot of The Mummy, which is the first film in their dark universe, which was interesting how this is their first movie into this universe and they expect it to pass and expect people to love it. But the thing I'm interested to see is that it's probably gonna flop and it's might not make its money back. And I really am thinking that Universal really pushed it too far or too quick with the first installment of this franchise. And I think it's really stupid that they did that because this might have been their downfall for this new franchise. Because the movie as a whole, I think, again, like the other two Mummy movies that came out a decade ago, it's just very meh. Like that one, it isn't, it isn't great, but I didn't hate it. But it's really not a great movie, but it's not one that made me angry. Because this movie, since it is part of a universe of all these Universal monsters, they have to establish that it exists in that world, and they don't make it all about the Mummy. They include other things like Russell Crowe's character, which I won't spoil in this review, who is important to this universe. And you didn't need him in this. You didn't need to put him in this and give all this exposition to Russell Crowe and make him just say, I'm blah blah blah, and this is blah 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 about this universe. Like he's explaining what this universe is about and how they've found creatures before, like the Mummy. But that was not needed. It really is annoying. It almost feels like the anti-Iron Man. The first Iron Man was very self-contained, where it didn't have really any reference to anything else out of the Marvel Universe. And then they had an after credit scene in Iron Man, which this one doesn't have one, but the whole movie feels like a teaser for the universe to come. But I feel like that's going to be its downfall. And Alex Kurtzman, who directed this, who was part of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and that downfall, and don't get me wrong, I loved a lot of things about that movie, but from a film standpoint, I completely get why people didn't like that movie, and it has the same issues as this. It feels like Universal brought him in, even though he failed with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they put in too many characters that weren't needed in the movie, and it made it his downfall, where it felt too convoluted. And this one is like that in essence, where it doesn't just focus on the Mummy and what is going on with Tom Cruise and Jake Johnson. It focuses on him as well, and Russell Crowe's character, and having him establish this world, and it doesn't need to do that in the first movie. And it really sucks that I wish I could have found a Mummy movie that I liked a lot. The only one, like I said, I liked is the Boris Karloff one that I've seen. And this one is really, literally, flat out just okay, like The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. I felt like those were so lackluster. Like, they had a couple moments, but they weren't great, but they weren't terrible. And this completely belongs in that range where it's not the worst thing ever, but it's not great at all, and it's not one that I loved. I didn't mind some things about it. Like Tom Cruise, I thought was actually really good as this endearing douchebag. Like he was endearing in a way, and I thought he was funny and entertaining in the movie. I liked him a lot, and I did like Russell Crowe for what he was in it. But he didn't need to be in it in this movie. It could have kept him into another one of these movies. And then you get Jake Johnson, who honestly in this movie I really didn't like, and Jake Johnson is a really funny actor. And I've seen a couple episodes of New Girl, and he's hilarious in that. And then you have him in this, where to me he was so annoying, and he didn't do anything for me. And the thing that really annoyed me the most out of anything in this movie is that there is a thing that happens, and I won't spoil it, but there is something, a subplot related to An American Werewolf in London, where they use this literal same subplot almost beat for beat, and it is really blatantly such a ripoff that it made me so mad because it did it worse than American Werewolf in London did. And this movie, it annoys me, but it doesn't annoy me in a way where I am angry at it, like I'm not furious, but I just look at it as a film and look how messed up this is, and see how Alex Kurtzman is involved with this movie too, and he might have a second downfall of a franchise, which he should just learn his lesson and not do this again, because there were things I loved about Amazing Spider-Man 2 so much, some amazing things about that movie for me, but there were things that didn't make sense, that didn't need to be there, and that made it its downfall. And this is probably going to result in the same fashion. And honestly, I hope not, because I want to see what other modern Universal monsters we will get. I hope it doesn't just end with this one, but I feel like because of these decisions that the company made and how they worked this in and made it so convoluted and tonally so off the charts, that it's not going to make this movie be one that people loved. There'll be some people who love it, like always. Like, there's always going to be somebody who loves something that a lot of people hate, or people are going to always hate something that everybody loves. So if you like this movie, fine, perfect. Just love this movie for yourself. Like, I'm not going to take that away from you. I just think, in my opinion, I thought it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. It was really down below a good movie. It wasn't good, and just for me in terms of being a movie, it just was very convoluted and tonally everywhere, and it just didn't work that well. And The Mummy isn't even as much of a focal point in this, which is kind of weird because it's called The Mummy. So yeah, I don't understand what they were thinking, but if this is the last one and it's only the first of this universe, I do feel bad for them, but I also don't, because they made this mistake before with other films where they make them too convoluted and make them too much of a teaser for the next franchise, for the franchise to come, and you should just focus on one thing. And I really wish that they would stop making these kind of mistakes, but overall The Mummy was just okay. It wasn't any better or worse than the Brendan Fraser ones to me. And it didn't like, it's weird because I never really go into an original, even though the 99 Mummy isn't the original one, but I never go into the first one to the reboot and think that it's going to be drastically the same, but this was so similar to me as the 99 Mummy films. They were just so close to quality. Like, they had some okay things about them, but they weren't great. Just like this one, it really is so weird that I've never found a film and then its reboot be so similar to the point where I just have no real feelings that are different than the last one. So that's so strange, but yeah, overall The Mummy just didn't do it for me. It was okay. It had Tom Cruise, who was great. Russell Crowe, I always love seeing Russell Crowe. I think he's one of my favorite actors. I love seeing him in anything, whether it's good or not. But yeah, this didn't do it for me. But I didn't hate it. I wasn't angry watching it. I was just new. I could tell the cuts between how this wasn't all one complete movie. It is really a mix of everything, and it doesn't work well. But overall, just The Mummy was okay. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully we'll see more of this universe. I don't know. Maybe this will be the last one, even though it just started. But thanks, guys, for watching so much, and I'll talk to you next time.